All right. Welcome, everybody, to episode 15 of the It's a Raptors Ting Podcast. This is your host who knows the most, the Scholar Baller, joined in by.
So Jerome, hey, how's it going, guys?
All right. Thank you, fellow co-host Jerome. And it's been a hot minute, everyone, but we're back and we're here. We're ready to talk a little bit about some Raptors basketball and just even some things around the league. So, if you enjoy Raptors basketball, if you enjoy NBA basketball, here's the place to be. It's very chill, very mellow,
Not
but
gonna bite me. We're gonna talk about basketball.
no, definitely not. Definitely not. Yeah, so a lot has happened, Jerome. A lot has happened since we last, did episode 14. Um,
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
it was looking as if the Raptors were revitalized, and I think it's fair game to say that, it's not so much a revitalization process, so much as it is the fluctuations of a franchise that is rebuilding. Uh,
Yep, yep. There's nothing much you can really say about the Raptors. I mean, it's just been a tough season. They've had some tough calls. They've had some tough games. It's been a lot of trades around. We've gotten RJ Barrett, gotten rid of Pascal Siakam. It's definitely not been the easiest time for the Raptors. I think it's best
oh,
off right now. They probably tank for next season.
definitely, definitely. Those are some interesting opening thoughts, and really appreciate that. Speaking of, though, I really wanted to get into addressing the elephant in the room. It's been big news in the Raptors discourse around and Raptors basketball as a whole. Um, Pascal Siakam. What are your thoughts on the Pascal Siakam trade?
I think it definitely helps with centering the team around Scottie Barnes a lot more. It seemed like he was like sharing the spotlight with Siakam too much. Like, it's kind of hard having like two guys who want to get like 25 plus points per night. Even in these days in the league. So I think with Siakam being gone, now the team can focus around Scottie Barnes. He's now the guy that they can focus all their attention on. There's no Siakam involved in it. It's just Barnes, 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 fully Barnes.
All right, yeah, so I hear you on that, but I will say this, like, see, I think the positive aspect of the Siakam trade is that the Raptors finally chose a clear-cut direction, and that is the rebuild, particularly a rebuild around the young players such as Scottie Barnes, RJ
RJ Barrett.
Barrett, and Emmanuel Quickley. So that definitely provides a sense of direction for this franchise, and the weight has been lifted, sort of off the shoulders of angsty fans
Yeah.
who, were in conflict with one another about the direction of this team. And, I gotta say, like, I respect what Pascal Siakam was able to do with the Raptors during his tenure with this team.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely. We can't forget about it. Multiple
mhm,
time All Star. He won us that NBA championship back in
mhm.
2019. Very crucial, especially in that game one.
Yeah,
Definitely helped set the tone for
absolutely.
that series. I think so. He definitely deserves a lot of credit, and we'll forever be thankful for what he did.
Oh yeah, most
Representing us.
definitely. We definitely will be thankful. But ultimately, most things, they have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
And I think it really was time when you factor in, you know, athletic chronological timelines around the feasibility of players actually being able to play together. you know, when the player is already, in their early 30s, and you got most of your star talent following behind that player is in their mid to early 20s. That is a gap, and it's quite a significant one when you consider the attrition that happens as professional athletes age on their
Mhm.
body and their physical capacity to play basketball at a all-star level or at an elite level. So ultimately, it needs to be said, heavy is the head that wears the crown. And right now, popular sentiment says that it's Scottie's team, but it gets tricky because even though popular sentiment put forth that it's Scottie's team, I don't think that it is. And again, this is just me kind of speculating a little bit here, but I think it's worth speculating. I don't think that it's ubiquitously understood amongst, the current three best players on the Raptors that it's Scottie's team, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
And I think a lot of those guys, in particularly RJ Barrett, feels like right now, there's a bit of a limbo, and there's a vacuum of power, and things are up for grabs, right?
Yeah, the problem with RJ Barrett though, he has a lot of talent. I think he has enough talent to match with Scotty Barnes, but the problem
Mhm.
is he's not consistent with it. He doesn't find a way to consistently get those points every night. His defense can be a little bit rough here and there too. So I think he definitely has to improve a lot more. He can be in that contention, but as I said, he needs more consistency. That's what I'll say about RJ Barrett right there.
Yeah, I will just say in response to that, with RJ Barrett, I think he is poised to turn his career around. He
Mhm.
has the comforts of home coupled with the harsher experiences of being away from home, playing in a major market. So he has those lived experiences on a professional level to compare and contrast. And when I watch him, contrary to Carmelo Anthony's comments around being an exciting player, not being an exciting player. When I watch RJ Barrett in a Raptors uniform, I see a go-getter. I see someone who's hungry, and I see someone who's attacking the basket, trying to put points on the board. And if I'm erring on the side of optimism, I believe that he also has the work ethic to expand his game in the ways that will be required of him if he
Oh yeah,
is in fact to take
I'm
a
not
bigger role.
I, I'm not denying that. I'm not
Hmm.
denying that at all. I think his work ethic and everything since he's been with the Raptors, I think it's definitely improved. But the thing is, he's got to do it on a daily basis, because if he wants to be the star player, he needs to be the guy who always wants to, prove it, always wants to be the guy who can, take that last bucket, take the shots, especially in game time, get those blocks, get those steals, That's what I'm saying. He's got to have that Mamba mentality, the one that Kobe talked about.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, I'll put it to you this way, like, one of the drawbacks to the Mamba mentality is I don't think the Mamba mentality is for everyone, because, even with has the Mamba mentality really taken Jason Tatum to the next level? It's somewhat debatable,
I mean,
the,
it's been becoming a pretty good player though. I mean,
oh yeah, yeah,
like from the 2017 draft, he's the best player. So it definitely has taken him pretty far.
yeah.
As I said, he's not always going to be the best player in the NBA, but
Mm,
I would definitely say it's gotten him a lot further. Instead of him, maybe just being a regular All Star, he is a
yeah,
superstar in my
yeah.
eyes.
Yeah, like I will just say too that with RJ Barrett, he doesn't necessarily need to be a more exciting player. Like I disagree with Melo's comments around I don't think it's ever really that important to be an exciting player. But the consistency, to your point, the consistency does need to improve because, Tim Duncan, for example, like he wasn't an exciting player, but
Oh yeah, he was a boring player. He was
but
amazing.
but he was consistent throughout his career. So I just think the foreground is there for it to happen in terms of RJ Barrett making that transition. To
Mhm.
me, it's not important whether he's an exciting player or not. I could care less about that. What's important to me is um, does his play translate into wins on the board, right? And I think
Correct.
we're gonna get that from him. Um, but yeah, like trying to get back to a little bit of the Pascal Siakam trade, and figuring that there is going to be that vacuum of power between like Barnes and Barrett and seeing who's going to be the number one option. What do you think of um, what the Raptors got in return for the trade for Pascal Siakam? So, for context, the Raptors got two first round picks in 2024.
Hmm.
And they also got one first round pick for the 2026 draft. So, and then obviously,
From is that
yeah,
Indiana's
yeah,
pick?
yeah, 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 from the Pacers, from the Pacers.
Okay.
The picks are from the Pacers, and one of the players, I can't remember at the moment if it's Jordan Nwora or
Yeah, yeah.
the
Jordan
other
Noir was one.
or the other scrubby player, you know. And then obviously we got Bruce
Bruce
Brown as
Brown.
well. But nonetheless, given who we got in terms of players and who we got in terms of draft picks, what do you think about the return on that trade?
Um, in honesty, my hope is that it was an okay thing. I think they could have gotten a little more for an All Star, like Siakam. The hope is obviously to get a pick. Right now, from what I've seen, we would probably get the 18th pick. Um, in in the draft, so it's not too great, but it's not terrible.
Mhm.
Jordan Noir, he's got some potential on him, but he's no Siakam. I think they could have gotten a better pick from this. Honestly, I think they could have gotten more. Um, maybe I don't know if Indiana was the best thing, but I got the feeling maybe they could have gotten someone else. Maybe Benedict Mathurin.
Yeah, his name was
Yeah,
tossed around a lot.
yeah, but I think they see him. I think as a bit too much of a future player. The other guy too, Andrew. What's his name? The other point guard on the Pacers. Nebhard is his name.
Andrew Nemhard.
Yeah, yeah, Nembhard. Yeah, from
Mm,
Aurelia, right? Yeah, I was kind of hoping they would have gotten him because that would have been a good point guard for the future. I think they should have went for him as well. But
mm,
you know, it is what it is, right? I was gonna get the
yeah,
best
yeah.
guy, but I think they could have. I think they could have gotten a lot more for that. I'm not too happy with it, but you gotta live with it, right? What's
Oh
done is
yeah,
done.
oh yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. You gotta live with it. What's done is done. Me personally, my thoughts on the return is I just think like given the nature of who the Raptors are as a franchise, um, I'm just gonna pivot over to the OG trade for a quick second. The
Hmm.
fact that we were able to, I just want to remind our fan base here that the fact that we were able to pull Quickley and Barrett from the OG trade, it will be a win for us in the long term. I'm definitely more than willing to go on record for saying that. But with this Pascal Siakam trade, I think we as Raptors fans, we have to remember that there's going to be times when Masai is able to pull off hallmark trades that are monumental moments within Raptors history. So like, when DeMar got traded for Kawhi essentially
Biggest.
back in the day, and then OG going for RJ and Quickley, and again, this stuff has, the relevance of this in terms of like positivity, it still is to be determined, but I do think we're in the right direction here. But as Raptors fans, we kind of have to remember that, it's not always going to be a trade where we're able to pin a big name for a big name. It's easy to forget sometimes, especially if you live in Toronto, because Toronto's like one of the biggest cities in North America. But
Yeah.
from an NBA marketing standpoint, we are still considered like a small market team.
Mhm. Which
So
doesn't make sense to me because we won the title half a decade ago, and yet we're
mhm,
still considered a
mhm.
small market
Yeah,
team.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Like
weird. It's
I'll put
weird
it to you this way, like real ones know Toronto is blessed, but some of the haters haven't really come around yet, but that's almost a whole different discussion.
because that's people just hating on the Great North. Just those Americans that don't like Canada.
Yeah, yeah. But nonetheless, like given this direction around a rebuild, I think this is pretty good given a few factors. Now I am operating in what I would refer to as reasonably surmisable territory. So, the Raptors, they've got their connections, they've got their scouts. Um, Many people critique the pick, and it's even if you look at the 2024 picks, like those picks are slated to be lower first round picks.
Yeah.
But
If the Raptors keep like if they keep losing, they could get like a top 5 pick,
mhm.
but
Yeah,
maybe.
that's scenario. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But keeping in mind with the Pacers situation, even though those are lower first round picks, it needs to be put into context that they have a plan. There's somebody in the lower first round, that they're planning for at least one of those picks to pan out. And there's a surmisable or reasonable chance that they will get that person. And given the fact that this team is still a young team, so, getting a diamond in the rough pick to be a glue guy type of player or an impact type of player on the defensive end, someone to really fulfill a impactful niche that the Raptors need. That's something that they're going to get out of the draft. Now, circling back to that point, in relation to what you brought up with the top six protected pick situation with the Spurs, um, of course, right now, I'm actually happier when the Raptors lose games. Now, me personally, like I'm not really a big fan of
Tank.
tanking, but if you really think about it, I think the Raptors are at least like if they choose to tank, I feel like they're still tanking with a
Purpose.
purpose. It's not just like aimlessly tanking for years and hoping something good is going to happen. You have a young core. You already have a few low first round picks from the Pacers. Maybe you might be able to get something else. You just lose a couple of games. I
That's
can't
true.
really fault them for it because in my opinion, if you like, they're probably something like 12 or 13 games under 500 as of the recording of this
Yeah.
video. And
Yeah, I think it's like
the reason,
14 games or something.
yeah, yeah. And the reason why I bring up that 500 mark is because in order to qualify for the play-in, most teams that are within the play-in scenario are around the 500 mark. But I just feel like why even bother battling through the play-in? It just
Yeah.
it doesn't really it doesn't really make as much sense from my
Well, it's good experience for
perspective.
the players, though. I think maybe like help them try to reach that next level.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Definitely get them a little like a half playoff spot. I mean, you, you can look at it in that point, right? Some people say it's helpful. Some people say it won't.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's probably better off you probably just tank then and just hope that in a few years you can get back into like top three, top four seed, and
Mhm.
then after that you'll probably be a little better off. You know,
No, I hear you. I hear you, man.
but I think
Great,
that
great.
playoff experience definitely will help in the future.
Yeah. And respectfully, like I think it's highly plausible that if they do this little rebuild, or if they do the first steps of their rebuild correctly, they
Hmm.
could be battling for a play-in spot come next season. You know what I mean? I don't think that's
That's true.
too far-fetched. So to your point, like I think they'll get that experience. I don't
Hmm.
think it necessarily has to happen this year though, but I do think like next year they should construct the roster in such a manner where a play-in spot is a feasible scenario. And like that's like the bare minimum expectation for year one of having this young core together, plus whatever you bring in from the draft. And then yeah, I wanted to I think this is a great time to kind of move in though from because we spoke about draft, we spoke about rebuilds, spoke about trades, spoke about the young core. I wanted to kind of move into President Masai Ujiri and the GM Bobby Webster.
Hmm.
What do you think Raptors president and GM will do at the trade deadline? Like, what do you think? What do you think Ujiri and Webster are cooking up for this team via the trade deadline?
Well, first off and foremost, I think they're gonna trade away Chris Boucher. I think he's I think he's gone. I've heard a lot of rumors about him not really staying around. So considering his age and the way he's been playing, I kind of wish the Raptors could play him a lot more, but I think he's gone. I think he's going to be out the door.
Yeah, yeah. Where just a follow-up question. Where do you think he's gonna go?
Not too sure. Um, you know, I don't know. It's hard to really say.
Yeah,
Um,
I've been hearing that the Celtics have been interested in him.
oh, the Celtics. Oh,
Yeah.
well, I'm not too sure. I've only heard some rumors he's been like going to be traded, but I'm not too sure who exactly. So the Celtics could be a possibility, but like I don't really know if he's going to make much of an impact because if he can't make an impact on a team like the Raptors that isn't even really fighting that well for the play-in, how is he going to get on the Celtics? They're probably going to trade him there and then probably just like release him or something, or maybe bring him down in G League. Like I don't see what they're going to really do with him. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I think that ultimately where Boucher ends up, I think he'll be a impact player coming off the bench.
I think
And
so.
yeah, I think he'll do slightly better though, just because I think that they'll give him a lot of grace to really shoot his shot from three. And I think
Okay.
with I think with Boucher now, I know that Boucher's shot from three has been mad inconsistent with the Raptors.
Yeah.
The Raptors, though, 3-point shooting is not really the Toronto Raptors' forte at all this season. But I think, given how the Celtics are like have a love affair with the three-pointer, I think Boucher will get plenty of space and plenty of grace coming off the bench to find a rhythm. And if he can find a rhythm and, start hitting the three and start getting defenders to bite off the three and then taking it in for a drive, maybe drawing a foul, maybe getting the occasional dunk here and there. I
I
think
get
he
pretty
could
good
be,
context of it.
yeah, like I think he could be quite impactful for the Boston Celtics if he does in fact go there. It's kind of sad though because we're helping out a division rival, a division rival who's never really had respect for the city, for just keeping it
Yeah.
100 on that.
Yeah.
You know, OG Raptors fans know about like how Boston's just always been mad disrespectful and Tiggs to the city, like always,
True.
always.
True. True.
But
I heard Boston got some Rust fans though. So I heard it can be a bit
mm,
of a it can be a bit of a mess over there.
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Even LeBron, he said that those kind of fans they ain't really top notch there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask though, with regards to what do you think about Bruce Brown? Sorry, I always, you know what it is? You know what it is though?
Yeah.
There's an old player called Bruce Bowen. Old basketball fans will know he played on the Spurs. So whenever like I think of Bruce Brown,
Oh,
I
I think I've heard of him before.
I literally have to stop myself from saying Bruce Bowen instead of Bruce Brown. So for context, like if for the audience out there, if you really want to know what's going on in my head, like
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like no, don't say Bowen. It's Bruce Brown. But yeah, for Bruce Brown, what do you think is gonna happen with him? Like because it seems like given the rumors and the whispers, like it's almost like he has, figuratively speaking, he's got 1 foot in and 1 foot out the door. So what do you think is going to happen with him?
It's hard to say. I'm not too sure if he would go. I could probably see him going. He could, be he could be pretty helpful in the future. Like if they're gonna make the playoffs, for that playoff experience.
Hmm.
But I mean, it's hard to say, right? Like I mean, I don't know. It's hard to really say on him. I wouldn't mind if they keep him. I felt like could give him a chance. But it's kind of hard to say if they really would keep him. But I'm probably 50-50 on it overall.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, like me personally, I would just like for the Raptors to trade him away,
Yeah.
maybe for some younger, athletic, mobile bigs.
Yeah.
I don't expect any big names, but just some. I just would like for them to get like, you know, I mean, a power forward or a center who doesn't necessarily have a name attached to them.
There's something I'm going to talk about with the draft.
Mhm.
A couple players I got in mind for the draft, but we can probably talk about that a little later.
Oh yeah. I'd love to
Yeah.
hear that. But yeah, like for Bruce Brown, it would just be nice if they got somebody who they don't necessarily have the star power yet, but somebody who you could tell like if they were given the opportunity to get some more run, they could really be somebody that the Raptors could develop because when it comes to a center, um, you know, and again, is nothing against Jakob Poeltl, but I don't think moving forward, I don't think that Jakob Poeltl as our starting center is necessarily the most ideal thing. Not saying it couldn't work at all, but it's just like, in my opinion, it would be nicer to have a center who's uh, stronger, more athletic, and a defensive presence. And this is why
Yeah, I
it
agree.
was it was kind of sad that Christian Coloco, he had that condition, because
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure that factored into him ending. Like, yes, there was the contract aspect of it. Like, they needed to factor in the bottom line, which is partially why he got waived. But I think it's a combination of the bottom line and the health, the prospects of his health. And I think
Yeah.
when you couple those two things together, the Raptors said, look, like, we can't really keep him, even though in a lot of ways he is what we would need to develop. Just because we don't necessarily need an offensive center moving forward.
Hmm.
Like, this is part, like, I don't want to go too far lateral with this point, but like, and again, like, I'm operating in idealism here, but like, it would be nice to get a Jared Jackson type of guy, or
Oh man,
yeah,
that would be a lot
yeah,
though. That'd be pretty
yeah,
hard.
yeah. Like, like, I don't think they could pull it off realistically. But it's just like, it would be nice to get someone of that ilk to really come in and be that guy, because I think Pirtle, in my opinion, if Pirtle was our second string center, I think we'd be like in a really great position right now. Will that happen? It's less likely, because the fact of the matter is, it's very difficult to get around some of the discrepancies that come with finding a good center in this league. Those are like few and far between, and most of the centers who have that defensive niche, like Memphis is holding down Jared Jackson Jr.
Yeah.
Miami ain't letting go of Bam Adebayo.
Oh, that's not.
So they're just like, yeah, just certain centers or certain prototypes that I feel would really work with the new look Raptors.
Mhm.
Um, it's gonna be like a tough task and a tall order to find that. And I think Koloko would have developed into that, but unfortunately,
Oh,
he's
the
kind
whole
of,
blood clots thing.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah. It's really sad what happened there.
Yeah. Hope he's gonna be okay though. I'll wish him a
Yeah.
speedy recovery. One thing, Jonas Valanciunas is actually a free agent this year, like in the summertime.
Hmm.
So that's something to look at. And so is Anthony Davis, actually.
Yeah. I mean, AD
Kind
is
of a
like,
long shot,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The
Free
only
agent, but
the only way Anthony Davis would come to Toronto, like, basically the only way he would come to Toronto in that scenario is if, like, the Lakers didn't make the playoffs, or if the Lakers lost badly in the playoffs
yeah.
and everyone in LA was like blaming him, then maybe he might be like, you know what, like, I'll go to the route. Like, but that's wishful thinking, just
Yeah,
because
it's a long shot.
he don't even remotely seem interested in Toronto. And then even if we do get him, see, the tricky part about that is, and again, like, if we have Jakob Pertl as a backup, that would be great, because you know what? Hypothetically, if Anthony Davis was to come to the Raptors, it would
You're
be
probably
like,
getting injuries.
yeah, or not just injuries, but I could also, one of the ways, off the record, so to speak, off the record, allegedly, like, the Raptors could market it to be like, yeah, you can do your load management business over here, because hey,
Oh, okay.
they did it. You know what I mean? They did it with Kawhi. Like, they were perfectly willing to do that with Kawhi. So it is somewhat plausible if you're talking about a free agency situation, but
Mhm.
like, the Lakers would have to definitively, like, be horrible, like actually like, and then a lot of the blame would have to fall on Davis's shoulders enough to deter him away from LA, like and
Oh,
I
sorry.
don't.
My bad. He signed an extension with LA. Actually, he did. Sorry about
Ah,
that. My bad.
okay, okay, all right. No worries, no worries.
Yeah, but
Mhm,
Valanciunas is still a possibility though. Maybe. I mean, I thought he was a pretty good center. I
mhm,
felt maybe they shouldn't have given him up
mhm,
though, but
yeah,
they could get him maybe as
mhm.
well.
Okay, yeah, no, not a problem. But yeah, I just wanted to get into this next question here. Will Scottie Barnes rise to the expectations of a franchise player? So, for a little context, there was that game, there was a series of games on that West Coast road trip where it felt like the Raptors just couldn't buy a win. They did get a few wins, but they couldn't really buy a win, and it was just like the refs were kind of coming against them.
Especially
And
the LA game.
Yeah, yeah, and Darko Rajakovic had that rant, right? And then within that rant, he said something along the lines of Scottie Barnes is going to be the face of the league. And it's like, yeah, do you think that Scottie Barnes is sort of on pace or on track to become or to get within the upper echelon of the NBA?
I think he definitely has that potential right now. Um,
Hmm.
he's in his third season. It's still early on. It's by
Hmm.
far has been his best season so far. Everything's been
Hmm.
up from last season. Field goals, 3-pointers, everything is just way better. As I
Hmm.
said before, I definitely think he's a future All Star. Um,
Hmm.
I am hoping he can reach that superstar potential where he can drop 30 a game. That's something that could happen, but
Hmm.
it's more than likely. I think he'll at least get 25 per game and will
Hmm.
increase his rebounds and assists and his steals. But if he can reach like the top, like a top five NBA player, that's something that will come in time. But I think he'll definitely
Hmm.
reach that maybe like that top 20 range in a few years, if maybe not even by next year, probably a
Hmm.
couple of years from now.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
the, we'll see. Time will tell. Time will tell. But he's got the potential to do it, though.
Yeah. No, that's totally understandable.
Yeah.
Me personally, like I think Scottie Barnes has like a lot of potential, but I also think that he's gonna have to withstand the storms of being a franchise guy,
Yeah.
because I said it earlier and I'll say it again. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. So first and foremost, if Scottie Barnes is going to be within the upper echelon of the league, you have to handle your business at home before you can handle your business out here in this world. And I say that just because at the end of the day, Scottie Barnes has to win the locker room, right? Point blank. He
I think he has,
he
though. I think he has, though. You know,
I I hear you, but I don't
time.
agree. I don't really think he has won the locker room. I think right now it's everything is contested, and players are doing what they can with no stakes, no real stakes on the table, given the wash that is the rest of this season for this ball club. But I think, you know, come training camp next year, the pecking order will have to be the tone's gonna have to be set. And it can't like if Scottie Barnes wants to be the guy, he's gotta set the tone in the locker room. He's gotta, show that on a night in, night out basis, the offensive production like will have to be there. And that's tough not because Scottie Barnes is incapable of producing offensively, but it's like right now, there is no more OG, there is no more Siakam to take some of that load off defensively or to like switch on the matchups. Like right now, if the Raptors force a switch, or sorry, if the other team facing the Raptors, they force a switch, you know,
Could be
whoever like
trouble.
there's usually like matchup exploitation going on. And I can tell that a lot of the things happening right now are just impacting that offensive production. And basketball is a mental game, so you're gonna have to be mentally tough to rise to the occasion. I think he can do it, but I just think that the level that is going to be required of him, we haven't really seen that as an expectation yet. And he has this year to get a taste of what that's like on a night in, night on basis. He gets a taste of like what it's like. Okay, the Raptors lose. The first stat line that everyone's looking at is Barnes' stat line. You know what I mean? It's not Siakam's stat line that people are looking at anymore. It's not OGs. It's not Fred VanVleet. It's none of those guys because those guys are all gone, right?
Yeah,
It's
gone.
it's
Gone from
it's
the game.
literally it's the first stat line that people look at when they look at the box score of each game. They look at his stat line and they go from there. And it's like wins and losses, and that's pressure. That's pressure. So it's not to say that he can't do it, but you know, fourth year, you've really got to you got to really get into your veteran mindset fourth year to the rest of your career. You
Yeah.
can't like this is the last year of if I was in Scottie Barnes' shoes, I would just say this to close in the point. This is the last year that you can really look at yourself as a young player, right? If you really want to be to that upper echelon, you can't look at yourself as a young player after this season, right? You got to look
Yeah.
at yourself as a vet trying to get the crown of the league, and you really got to have that outlook. And I think he'll do it. But I just think that like right now, you can kind of see that there's a little bit of internal conflict. I would think, just by the eye test when I really see like, and there's an adjustment period. But I'm just happy that the adjustment period is happening now because from my standpoint, he's playing with house money right now, right? He
Mhm.
has a bit of a grace period to adjust. The expectations from the fans right now are not too high, but come next season, it's gonna be up there. It's gonna be up there. So we'll see. I still think optimistically about his future projections, but I do see that there is um, a journey that it's not insurmountable, but it needs to be surmounted. Um, yeah.
Yeah. To kind of emphasize what you were talking about. Yeah. I'll say one thing about the NBA and basketball. It's 10% physical, 90% mental. That's one thing. And another thing I gotta say about Scottie Barnes, he's got to take a lot more shots. You know, there's a lot of times when he's playing like 40 minutes, he's taking like 12 shots. 12 shots, 10 shots. You got to be taking at least 20 shots a night, man. If you can knock down
Mhm,
10 of those shots, that's 20
mhm,
points right there. And that doesn't include 3 pointers. You get a couple 3 pointers involved in that,
mhm,
you could be looking at 25, 30 points. So I
mhm,
think he also needs to take a lot more shots too. And as I said, he needs to win over the locker room. I think he needs to win over the fans, and he needs to win over management. He needs to prove that he's a team
mhm,
player. He needs to show that he can die for those balls. You know, all the time.
mhm,
It's stuff like that that would really help a lot of people realize, huh, you know what, this guy is the franchise. Because
mhm,
now he's in competition with RJ Barrett, you know,
mhm,
And
Mm-hmm.
RJ Barrett, he's got a lot of talent on him. Back in high
Mm-hmm.
school, he was pretty much the best thing in high
Yeah.
school, apart from
I'm,
Zion in his
I mean,
freshman
Scottie and
year.
RJ, they duked it out in high school, as a matter of fact, right?
Well,
So
yeah, they did.
that's
Yeah, they did.
that
Yeah, a year
that's
apart.
that's that's added to the lore, right?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, right. And another thing, Scottie's best friend in OG got traded for, a former rival, right? In
Yeah,
RJ, right? So, there's a little more to it, a little more to it. I can't lie, but ultimately, like they're those guys are teammates now. The expectation is that they are still professional and cordial with one another. And
yeah,
they put the betterment of the team first, but
hmm
also like I can't blame them for competing for the locker room. Like, I can't really blame them for doing that because that's kind of what you want. You want that. You don't want people to feel safe, in terms of like feeling like they have it no matter what. You want people to feel some degree of pressure so that they hold themselves accountable, right?
right, right. That's true.
Um,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's gonna be some competition, but I think I've seen the last two games where he took 20 shots or more, 26 points and
mhm,
23 points. You know,
mhm,
so definitely there was one game he took against Grizzlies the other day, 14
mhm,
shots, 22 points. Although he's
mhm,
one of three from three, so he
mhm,
definitely he's got a lot. He's got a long way to go before he can reach that top level. But
mhm,
I think this year definitely proves he's willing to work towards it. So at
mhm,
least he'll go down swinging. He's not going to go down just with that you know effort last year. He's definitely stepped up a lot this year, and I think if he can continue to maybe get the locker room behind him, with some new guys there. I don't think
mhm,
RJ Barrett has affected his play because he's still done pretty good. I think he'll definitely reach that um, all-star level next year and maybe in the future, maybe even that superstar potential that we're
mhm.
seeing.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's totally understandable for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, so I just want to touch on the one of these other questions about the Raptors here. How well do you think RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley have been adjusting within the Raptors system?
I think they've been pretty good. Um, RJ Barrett, he had his best game with this season with the Raptors against Golden State. So I think, and so has Emmanuel quickly as well too. He's had some pretty good games as well. RJ looks a lot better with the Raptors. He looks like a new man. He looks like that rookie that had a lot of potential on him.
Hmm. Hmm.
I feel like with the Knicks, I don't know. Maybe it had something to do with they were putting a bit too much on Brunson. But
Hmm.
ever since he's been with the Raptors, apart from one game against the Jazz, he has been pretty damn good. You know, he looks like the guy who actually can, maybe reach that next level. He's been a little rough from the three, but I think overall
Hmm.
he's shown a lot more potential than he was with the Knicks. So I think this
Hmm.
shows that his first of all his teammates trust him a lot more, and I think
Hmm.
management trusts him a lot more to be that guy. But for him, he's got a long way to go before he can even reach that all-star potential, you know?
Hmm.
Because where Barnes has really been improving a lot ever since he came in the league, I see that RJ, he's not really like improving. Like 1 second he's improving, and then the next
Hmm.
second he's kind of like he's stuck. He's in that inconsistent phase. Like that's one
Hmm.
thing I kind of see out of that like 2019 class, with Morant and um with Zion too. It seems like they're really inconsistent. They can be a lot better, but like maybe issues off the court, or maybe just like that, mentality get like a little further is kind
Hmm.
of stopping them from reaching their potential. Because
Yeah.
I think RJ Barrett he could still be an all star. He's only 23, He's only been in the league
Mm,
for a few years. I think he's got what it takes to be that player they're looking for. So I think with the Raptors, he can do it. With the Knicks,
y-
no, I don't
yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah. To your point, I think you made some excellent points about RJ Barrett. I think with the New York Knicks, RJ Barrett was put into a position where, when they drafted him, he was expected to come in there and initially mold into their number one option. The Knicks did acquire Julius Randle, and they went on that. They did manage to make the playoffs when Julius Randle and RJ were just a tandem. But during
Yeah,
that time, it became clear that Julius Randle was more so the number one option, RJ Barrett was the number two option,
yeah,
and then you had some other names thrown in the mix like Obi
Brunson.
Toppin, et
Yeah,
cetera, et cetera. You had.
I mean, Toppin's not really been that you
Oh
know.
yeah, I know he hasn't really panned out. Like, I want to
Mhm.
make that clear. I'm just like, doing like a little a brief synopsis of recent Knicks history, and then
Yeah,
obviously, with Jalen Brunson coming in
yeah,
uh
the
from
man, the
from
man for the
from
Knicks.
yeah, yeah, coming in from Dallas. And the Knicks fans, it's crazy. Knicks fans always have initial disappointment about people, but the people
Mhm.
they're initially disappointed about end up being the ones that pan out for them. Because if you recall, when Brunson ended up signing with the Knicks, everyone was saying, well, the Knicks were supposed to get Donovan Mitchell. Da, 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 da,
Mhm.
da, da.
And we saw what
But
happened the next
yeah,
year.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Brunson outplayed Donovan
Hmm.
Mitchell in the
Yeah, yeah.
playoffs, and it
Hmm.
led to New
Hmm.
York, the underdog against Cleveland, knocking Cleveland right out of the playoffs.
Exactly. But to that point, Jalen Brunson became the number one option, and Julius Randle has been posting some of the best seasons in his career since Brunson's arrival. So
Yeah.
Randle became the number two option. And of course, someone with the mentality of RJ Barrett, his parents were Olympians for crying out loud,
His
Uh,
dad played with Steve Nash,
yeah, you know what
the
I mean? So,
God
so,
Godfather.
someone who's been a top ranked guy, someone who went to the top one of the top colleges in Duke, and
Played
someone
with
who,
Zion, Cam
yeah,
Reddish.
high, yeah, exactly, high draft pick. You can tell that RJ Barrett hasn't given up on the idea of succeeding in this league, and
Oh yeah,
to
I'm
be
not saying he's given up
oh
on it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's just
and to
maybe management got to give him one more
mhm.
chance. You know.
and to be pushed into being a tertiary option with the Knicks, that wasn't really cutting it for him, like
Yeah.
of course his numbers are going to dip to like 17, 18, and an inconsistent 17 and 18 as a tertiary option,
Yeah.
and that's not really his game isn't really powered off of being a tertiary option. One day on this channel, I'll do a more thorough breakdown of RJ Barrett's game. One day, the more breakdowns will come out. But to sort of round out the point with the Raptors, he's got a chance at being minimum. He's got a chance of being the secondary option, which he can be effective in. And that's the minimum. It's a possibility he could be the primary option. Like we said, it's to be determined. Now I do want to add on pivoting away from RJ and just I feel like I've marginally mentioned Emmanuel quickly so like in
One
this podcast.
sorry, one thing to mention about RJ Barrett. Ever since
Hmm.
he's came to the Raptors, he's averaging 21 points,
Hmm.
55% from the field as well too.
Yeah, that's
So
really that's
he's
hella efficient.
averaging he was
Yeah,
averaging about 42.3% with
with the
with
Knicks,
the
eh?
Knicks. So
Mm-hmm.
he's definitely gone up. Rebounds have gone up from 4.5 to 7. Assists have gone up 2.5 to 3.5. Even
Yeah,
his
and that
steals are up too. 3 points up too. So
yeah,
yeah, definitely been a huge improvement to the
yeah,
Raptors.
100%. I just wanted to pivot over though a little bit to Emmanuel quickly. With
Okay.
Emmanuel quickly, I think, he's got a lot of potential to be all right for this team.
Hmm.
But I think the last video, I spoke a little more highly of him. So I think this episode, I think I need to address some of the discrepancies that I'm noticing through watching basketball. Now, Emmanuel quickly is a scoring guard or scoring point guard. Um,
Yes, he is.
I don't personally have a problem with a scoring point guard. I think recent NBA history, the past decade, has proven that you can still be successful with a scoring point guard. So I don't have an issue there. I think my issue with Emmanuel quickly, and I do know that he has like a mild injury right now. I believe it's
Yeah,
like
he's
a
had
it's
some.
like a it's like a leg injury of sorts.
Mhm.
So that could have been potentially impacting him, but even it's not just like even before this became known, from what I've been seeing, I just think for a scoring guard, you know, if you're gonna pride yourself on being a scoring guard, I think you have to develop a bag, like more of a bag, and I think that's one of the biggest things that I feel Emmanuel quickly lacks, because if I was to if I was to look at his game through like three bullet points,
Hmm.
he he can shoot the three.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He has a floater, and he can do if he has the right angle, he can change his speed enough to get to the basket. Those are his three defining attributes as a guard. However, when you compare him to some of his contemporaries, that inevitably, if the Raptors are going to be a top tier team, he's going to have to come up with something comparable to the upper echelon of point guards in the league. I feel like he's lacking. I feel like he's lacking. Like he
Yeah.
needs to develop a little bit more to be, to be a little more dependable. Because the Raptors, like in late game situations, it's not going to be good enough to like put up the floater and have it brick, or put up three and it doesn't go down. Like, you gotta find ways to be um more daunting as a point guard, and be more dynamic with your finishes, with the double clutches, the up and unders, etc., etc. So I think a lot of that seems to be lacking. And one other bad habit that I notice is he tends to leave his feet a lot before passing the ball, or before knowing what he's going to do with the ball. And
Yeah.
I think the scouting reports out on that. And oftentimes I find defenses, when they see Emmanuel quickly, they're often playing the passing lanes, or they kind of keep one sort of hand in the passing lane, because
Hmm.
they know, like, once he leaves his feet, liable to be a turnover, right? And
Yeah.
it's going to be a
Or out
live
of
ball
bounds.
turnover too, right? Or yeah, even a dead ball turnover, because maybe when he leaves his feet to pass, right, it's like there's too much power on the pass, and it goes into the audience sometimes too. So
True.
yeah, it's
True.
it's tricky. What are some of your thoughts on IQ?
Yeah. He is a bit of a neglected guy. As I said, he doesn't really have the upside like RJ Barrett does. But yeah, I'll agree with them. I think he is a fantastic 3-point shooter. I will agree with that. I think his assists too. He's good at getting them. He's been a lot better ever since he's been part of the Raptors. He's almost tripled his assist numbers from when he was with the Knicks. And obviously it's not surprising. I mean, there's no Brunson there anymore. So he's got potential to be better, but I think he's more maybe got potential to be better than Schroeder.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think all the aspects you were talking about, you may just have to learn to calm down just a little bit.
Hmm.
And I think if you can learn kind of just, stay on his feet, be a little more grounded, be a little more, mentally smart with some of these, plays. If he realizes, hey, these guys are trapping me because I'm making these stupid plays, you gotta stop making the stupid plays. You gotta do something else. And
Hmm.
then teams will have to, rebound and be like, we gotta do something to find a way to stop this guy. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I think you're definitely right. I I like Quickly. I think he can be pretty good, but I can see he's another guy that can be inconsistent. He's got some traits that definitely do show that you know he may not be the best option for the point guard, but I think we should give him some time and see how well he can
Hmm.
do in the future. Yeah.
True, true. Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Time tells all tales.
Yep.
And I just wanted to like point out, given some of the things that have happened, just kind of moving to slightly different subject. Do you think the Raptors and even in the broader NBA, do you think that there's an NBA or that there's a referee problem?
There's been a referee problem. Um, um, I think there's been a referee problem from back in the 2000s. There's always gonna be
Mm,
a referee problem.
mm.
From the Lakers, you know, um, '02 series.
Tim Donaghy, the
Donaghy.
Kings, Lakers, the subject that nobody in basketball
Yeah,
in
like a problem that
traditional basketball media never they don't even like talking about that. But go
exactly.
on.
That's like he's like the one guy who's like been like deleted from NBA history.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people out there, you know, I should really talk about this. There's always conspiracy theories, and everything.
Hmm.
Some people think that every sport is rigged. Some people think the World Cup last year was rigged for Argentina. You
Yeah.
know,
All these alleged
people think that
conspiracy
people think that
theories.
Kansas City is going to win the Super Bowl because I think Taylor Swift is dating some Kelsey guy or something. People think that the big name teams, the Lakers, the Heat are always going to make it because the big markets make the big money. So obviously Toronto's not really a big name market. Then again, Milwaukee isn't either, and that's still been pretty good. So maybe there's no conspiracy, but there's always going to be people out there saying that there's a referee problem. Um, if you want my honest opinion, referees are human. They're human like us. They do make mistakes. Especially in close games. You got 20,000 people screaming at you. You got two coaches and a bunch of players, 24 players that are screaming at you. You know, it's a tough life being a referee. So as much as people will say that they're corrupt and everything, I don't think there's any corruption problems in the NBA. I've studied, like, if you want to go off topic, I've studied soccer. There is a lot of problems in soccer with
Mm,
corruption, especially in Italy. But
hmm.
it could just be rough nights. As I said with the Raptors. You know,
Hmm.
I think it's just some tough calls that they're
Hmm.
making. But I don't think there's a conspiracy against the Raptors that, like,
Hmm.
the league the uh
Hmm.
doesn't want them in the playoffs or whatever. Beat the Lakers. Sometimes it's just tough calls. Different angles. That's honestly, we could talk all day about referees.
Hmm.
Um, people have said referees. As I said with the Kings and the Lakers. The issue with Allen Iverson, I think back in late 2000s, where people said he was I think what two referees were trying to rig his games or not give him fouls or something,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
said
Basically,
the person didn't like him or something.
yeah, there was an issue, the referees. The gist of the story is that the some of the refs felt like Allen Iverson mouthed off to an official too much. So the
Tim
comment,
Duncan getting kicked out
yeah, 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 that
for
happened as well.
laughing at the referee.
Yeah, but with the Iverson situation, it was like so allegedly, some of the refs decided that his crossover would be called as a carry, right? And
Yeah.
that's been the story that's been circulating around, that's what went down. But yeah, the NBA has definitely had its fair share of scandals. That's
Oh,
there's the things that have been proven, and then there's the broader conspiracies around the things that have been proven. Ultimately, I'm always of the mindset, like, I'll just put it to you this way. Of course, in the heat of the moment, when I'm watching the games, I'm upset. Half the time I'm yelling at the TV. I'm
oh
incredibly
yeah,
vexed
yeah.
at
As
some of the
fans,
things.
oh yeah, yeah. Happens
But
all the time. You see Drake
but
on the see Drake in the playoffs, trash talking all those players.
yeah, yeah. But I think one of
You
the
saw Kevin
things that
Durant as mentioned in one of his music videos a few years back.
hmm
Kevin Durant, Kevin Durant was able to revenge him. That's Drake's
hmm
karma. For talking all that trash. And I
yeah,
love Drake, but as I said, you know,
yeah,
he's not a referee. He's just a
yeah,
fan. He's a
yeah,
rich fan, but he's a
yeah.
fan.
And I think one of the things that we have to remember though is ultimately, like, a lot of these games, the Raptors could still win. And this is
Mhm.
why I think it is, and again, it might sound like a duh moment here, but I think that ultimately it's imperative to prioritize, like, putting out a talented team on the floor, because oftentimes we get into these late game scenarios partially because of the referees' calls, but also because each time we're facing a team that we could potentially beat, it needs to be acknowledged that we're always operating within a talent deficit, like, we're always on the deficient side of talent in relation to the other team in the vast majority of cases, so like it again, these things, of course we can talk about, like, referee corruption, quote unquote, or allegedly
Yeah.
or whatever, but the end of the day, it starts
What?
it starts at home. Like, what are you
Yeah.
building at home, right? That's
hmm
that's where it'll ultimately make the difference. And I'm just looking at the construction of that roster, like, that's what I'm more so banking on in late game scenarios. I don't expect to get the referee's benefit of the doubt as a Raptors fan. Seldom does that happen.
Yeah. Obviously, as I said, everyone's gonna think, that there's a conspiracy against the Raptors, because they're not a big market team. As I said,
hmm
some small market teams have been winning recently,
hmm
since the late 2010s, and some people say that because this has been going on, some of the ratings haven't really been doing so well
hmm
since like the late 2010s. So,
hmm
some people were saying that for a long time. That's the reason why
hmm
why the NBA was kind of making more, the LA Lakers, the Boston Celtics, those big name teams get into the playoffs. Small teams like Toronto, Sacramento don't really get so much um
hmm
thing. So, when it comes to the criticism of referees, it just goes so far into the controversies of, the NBA, right? Because there's so much
hmm
controversies around, the Donald Sterling incident that happened about 10 years ago. That was a really big
hmm
thing.
hmm
NBA draft. Some people say that, you know, 2003 draft was rigged for LeBron. The 2008 draft was rigged for Derrick Rose. You know, it,
hmm
there's so much. There's just so much conspiracies in NBA. Some people think
hmm
some of them are true, but in my
hmm
opinion, I think it's just bad calls against the Raptors. But
hmm
it's accidental. It's not intentional. You know.
Yeah. All right. Well, um, you know, we've spoken quite a bit about, like, Raptor-centric topics, and I
the NBA
figured,
conspiracies and all this stuff, and
yeah,
people
I
think that
figured it.
LeBron's entire career has been rigged. Right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I figured it was time to more or less, get into some of these, um, you know, important but additional things that happened around the league. Uh, so
Okay.
I just wanted to point out, this past week was it's like there was something special in the air. Um, on January 26th, it was the 4-year anniversary of the passing of Kobe Bryant and his
And his
daughter,
daughter and everyone else
G
involved.
Gianna Bryant, yeah, and seven others in the helicopter
And
crash.
John Altabelli.
Um, and furthermore, back in 2006, January 22nd, Kobe Bryant dropped 81 points. So there's definitely a lot of Black Mamba energy going around, and it
Mm.
seems as though like that energy's been slithering around the league because so many big games happened, and I'm of the mindset that I kind of want to start from like worst to best, or so I'm gonna start off with Towns. So Carl Anthony Towns, he dropped 62 points, but the tricky part is that Carl Anthony Towns ended up getting benched in the fourth quarter of the game, or at some point in the fourth quarter of the game, and later on he was called out by his coach for stat padding. So what are some of your thoughts about
Yeah.
that?
That is hella embarrassing. Um, when you're being called up by your own coach for stat padding, that's he's probably right. you know. Um, you know, I'm not too sure if I'd say it's just fully stat padding. As I said, they probably were just trying to, get the win. Um,
Mhm, mhm,
you know, ultimately, they did end up losing, so maybe it wasn't a bright idea.
mhm,
Then again, as soon as they took him out, they did end up losing in the fourth quarter,
mhm,
36-18.
mhm,
So I don't know. He probably was stat padding a little bit, but at the end of the day, he probably shouldn't have been. He probably shouldn't have been taken out of the game. He probably should have been kept in there because
mhm.
ultimately they lost.
Yeah, they
They've been pretty good this year though, which kind of helps
yeah,
a little
yeah,
bit. But
yeah, that's true. That's true.
yeah,
Um, Me personally, like I've always kind of been of the mindset that um, the real reason why that team is succeeding is at the end of the day, it's Ant-Man, it's Anthony Edwards,
yeah, I
right?
believe he
Like,
is their best player by far.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, nonetheless, he got called out by his coach and deservedly so.
Yep.
Moving forward a little bit to the next big game that happened during this I'm just gonna refer to it as the Black Mamba week. You might I guess might as well. Um, Devin Booker also had a 62-point game against Pascal Siakam and the Indiana Pacers.
Dropped 62
However,
on.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
However, the interesting thing is, Pascal and the Pacers were able to rally from 17 points down to end up getting the victory. So it was another 62-point game, but the 62-point game uh, ended up going into a loss. So what are some of your thoughts about that?
Well, we've seen a trend. I think sometimes players are just being a bit too greedy. You know, they're not really giving their teammates opportunities. Sometimes the teammates don't want to take the shots, right? But I think there are times when people maybe are stat padding a little bit,
Hmm.
but Yeah. As I said, there are going to be nights when sometimes you just end up winning a bunch of games, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
But I thought I don't I don't think he was stat bad. I think he had a really good game, and I will
mm-hmm.
give him credit. I think he's a hell of a player, but he's got to show up in the playoffs, in
Mm-hmm.
my opinion. Ultimately, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah. Ultimately, yeah, like, you know, it just goes to show that the Pacers, though they struggled early when they got Siakam, I do think the Siakam acquisition is helping them out. I think the
Yeah.
Pacers overall have a great culture going on there. They've got a bunch of young guys who
Oh, their
they
team.
yeah, like
Yeah.
they really wear it on their chest, like they're ready day in and day out to come in and ball. And I'm just glad that Siakam is fitting well in within their
Oh yeah.
system. And then once Halliburton returns and him and Halliburton get some burn together, especially after the All-Star break, and leading into the playoffs, like, hey, I think the Indiana Pacers, I think it's fair enough to say, and this is just assuming that everyone league wide stays healthy. I think it's fair enough to say that the Indiana Pacers are definitive dark horse contenders within the Eastern Conference. Like I
Yeah.
think they've earned that.
Oh, definitely.
Because I'm not saying that they're better than the Knicks, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were to ever face the Knicks. I wouldn't be surprised if that series went a full 7 games.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because
Like the Knicks,
Pacers
the
are.
Knicks, the Knicks on paper, I feel like are a better team, but the Pacers can give them a run for their money for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Halliburton, I think he is the next great point guard in the NBA.
Hmm.
He's
Hmm.
already starting to reach that, but I think as the years go on, he's going to get even better and better and better. I think
Hmm.
he'll definitely reach that superstar level. He's very close to it,
Hmm.
and I think next year he'll achieve it.
Yeah. All right. Well, um, so just sliding on to another miraculous game. Well, I'm gonna put an asterisk around miraculous because being Raptors fans, like I feel like as Raptors fans, we forever have the right to put an asterisk around anything Joel Embiid does. But Joel Embiid, he did have a 70 point, masterpiece, as many of
Against
the
Spurs,
tabloid. Yeah,
dropped
yeah.
on
So that, so that,
Wembanyama.
so yeah, yeah. And it's like that's where the asterisk comes in. It's like you did that against a rookie, and you did that against one of the league's worst teams. So like, eh,
Well,
is it really that impressive?
you have to remember one thing though. Victor Wembanyama, he did get 33 points that night, so it's not like he didn't, get
Hmm.
anything out of it. He has been pretty good this season. He's averaging a double double.
Hmm.
Some people have even been saying he's an
Hmm.
outside contender for an All Star position. And remember, he was playing in Europe for a long time too, which is
Hmm.
necessarily a step up from college. And he was doing it from when he was about what,
Hmm.
15 or 16. So this is
Hmm.
the guy who has um a few years of experience playing in uh in the NBA. Sorry,
Hmm.
in a pro league.
Pro
You know,
setting, yeah,
yeah, in the Euro League, which is
yeah.
necessarily against the likes of Real Madrid and Barcelona. So
Hmm.
Wembanyama, he's got a lot of. This isn't really just a rookie. He's necessarily playing almost in his second season in the NBA because of the amount of experience he's gotten. Because he's already
Yeah.
played against some of these guys who have
Hmm.
already played in the NBA. You know,
Hmm.
so he is playing against a pretty good player in Wembanyama. You know,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, I feel like
yeah,
he outweighs him by like 30 pounds, in the post. Like, I feel like that's a huge thing there, like. he just kind of manhandled him, I feel like, But
Yeah.
yeah, like ultimately it's one of those ones where I I
They
feel
got the
like
win though. They got the
they
win.
got they, they got the win, but like they were just picking on they were picking on the freshman, It's a senior picking on a freshman. Like I uh, I'm like I'm like
Hey, it's
like because
basketball,
here's
you know.
because here's the thing, like with 70, I feel like 70 points was like a big deal at some point, but like so many players have done the 70-point thing to where like it's less of a big deal. And like not only that, but also like how you get your points and who you get it against to me also kind of matters as well, And I just feel like, it was definitely like what Embiid did was better than what Booker and Towns did with their 62-point games, but it's still pales in comparison to the man, the myth, the active player legend,
Remember one thing
Luka
though.
Luka
Embiid had
Doncic.
Embiid. He had 24, 41 points and 18 rebounds. So it's an impressive game still. But yeah, I'll give you Luka Doncic though. Yeah.
Yeah, he recorded 73 73 points. Now he's tied for fourth in NBA history because that
Mm-hmm.
73-point performance is tied with David Thompson and Wilt Chamberlain.
25 to 33 from field goal. Wow. That
Uh,
is something
that
insane.
hella
8 of
impressive.
13 from 3 point.
Hmm
10 rebounds, 7 assists.
hmm
Yeah, I think that is the most impressive. They were able to get the
hmm
win too. Um,
hmm
yeah, I think that definitely
hmm
does come. Well, sorry, but both games were really impressive. Both
hmm
games were just stand out of
Yeah.
this world.
And
Fantastic.
you know what I love? Like I love that Doncic did that against Atlanta. Just really just grinding it in Atlanta's face that like they messed up by drafting Trey Young instead of him. So
Yeah,
yeah.
Trae Young was pretty good though that night, but yeah, Doncic they made a mistake giving up Doncic. You know, yeah.
Um, Jason Kidd, coach, NBA legend, one of the greatest point guards of all time, and current coach of the Dallas Mavericks. He was quoted in reference to Luka Doncic. He was quoted as saying, "He is the game plan." A little tongue in cheek there, but like also
100%. He
not
is the game
really
plan.
because he is the game plan.
I mean,
Like,
honestly, in my opinion, I think Luka Doncic, um, if he wasn't American, he would be the face of the league already. Um,
yeah,
this
yeah,
guy is just
absolutely.
fantastic. I've seen him. I've told you about when I saw him back in 2017, back when he was at the EuroBasket, and he was
Mhm,
ball in against everyone. And
mhm,
that year they won the EuroBasket. An 18-year-old won a EuroBasket with
mhm,
with starting on the
mhm,
team and was one of the best players in the tournament, playing
mhm,
against Spain,
mhm,
Serbia, top teams. You know, so he's
mhm,
already proven it from when he was young, and now he's proven it
mhm,
in the NBA. The only problem is Dallas not too great with not too great with some getting some of the outside players. They had Brunson, they gave him away, big mistake.
mhm.
But
Yeah.
I'm gonna say one thing: I think this guy, I think he should be the face of the league. You know,
Mhm,
unless Tatum can really overpass him, I think Luka Doncic. I think he's the future. I think he's the
mhm,
future by far.
mhm.
Playoff
Yeah.
performer too. Yeah,
Uh, uh,
for me, his what makes him so good. I think it's his fundamentals. It's his
mhm,
mentality. Same thing with
mhm,
Nikola Jokic because these guys aren't really very athletic. They're mostly
mhm,
kind of just say like average athleticism, but he uses his brain to get around it.
mhm,
His
mhm.
3 pointers are amazing. We saw him in 2022 against Chris Paul and Devin Booker in that series when Dallas was playing
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix, who was the number one team at that time. And you
Mm-hmm.
saw the way he
Yeah.
just, controlled the game. He mentally controlled the game. He
True.
was
True.
playing chess, and Phoenix, they were playing checkers like a 5-year-old. You know,
Yeah.
this guy was just destroying them. And, he's only 24, so I think he's going to have a long time to go. He could have another decade and a half of dominance, you know. But I definitely think he's going to win at least 3 NBA titles. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. He is someone who we really need to just keep on our radars because
Yeah.
he's so great already, and he hasn't even. The funny thing is, he hasn't even entered the point in his career yet where he's dominating in terms of winning titles. Like when that part of his career comes, it's gonna be wild. Right? Like
Yeah.
like a lot of teams and a lot of superstars are gonna be starved for attention because he's coming through to get all of that, right? But it's gonna be. I think it might be like a year or two more before you start to maybe see that. But
Yeah. The problem is Dallas. They're not really. They don't really have what it takes right now to be a playoff contender. They're gonna make
mm,
probably the semifinals or the conference finals and get knocked out by Denver or maybe even
mhm,
OKC, who's another team I want to talk about as well too because they have some pretty good studs too. But
mhm,
yeah, I think that Luka is the future. As I said it before and I said it
mhm,
again. I think he's going to be up there. He's better than Tatum. He's better than everyone in the league right
mhm.
now.
Yeah, I hear
And
you.
this game right here, he had a 62-point game. What was it, 2022? That proves it as
Mhm,
well too. You know.
yeah. And I think the last thing that I'll end off with, it's not really as connected to Black Mamba Week, but it still happened.
Yeah, that day. It's tough.
The Milwaukee Bucks, they fired former Raptors assistant coach and the Milwaukee Bucks former head coach, Adrian Griffin. Um,
Hmm.
and they replaced him with Doc Rivers, despite having I believe, the second best record in the Eastern Conference. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
surprising. It's pretty surprising, honestly. Um, a guy like Doc Rivers, who's had some struggles with the Philadelphia 76ers, has struggles with the Clippers coaching them. Um, I don't know. I don't really think this is a great, coaching decision, especially come playoff time. But then again, he did win, Coach of the Year 2000, NBA champion in '08 with the Mavericks. So,
Mhm,
sorry, with the Celtics, I mean. Um, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, they do have Giannis and Lillard, so it's definitely been a pretty good ride for them. Obviously, Lillard hasn't really been on top of his game, but he doesn't have to be with Giannis being there. But
mhm.
we'll see what happens when playoff time comes. Yeah,
True, true.
I think they'll still at least make the conference finals, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. There's been a bit of a
Mhm.
Rivers curse. He hasn't been so great recently, but we'll see what
Yeah,
happens.
I
We'll see what
mean, you
happens.
could make the argument throughout his career he's dropped the ball like multiple times over, and like
2020, 2023. Yeah.
the loud voices of the '08 Celtics are what's keeping him relevant at this point.
Yeah.
It's actually quite sad when you think about it, but somehow, if there's a coaching vacancy, it always seems like franchises and teams are still willing to always take a chance on him. So I don't know about that, but I just will say that with the Doc Rivers situation, it's gonna be kind of interesting because if the Bucks buck up on the Sixers, like that could be interesting. I feel like I feel like Rivers, one thing about Doc Rivers, he loses a lot, but I feel like he's somebody who he doesn't duck smoke, he's not really known for that.
Yeah, he owns up to everything,
Yeah. And I think I'm gonna just leave it at I'm really interested in seeing a Bucks versus Sixers playoff series. Like I hope that does happen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, from the standings right now, it would happen in the semifinals,
Mm,
logically. So, you know,
mhm. Yeah. So like the second round, basically, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Second round.
okay, I know.
One thing I gotta ask you though,
Mhm.
what do you think about the All-Star selections for this year?
Mm, I mean, I feel like my only sort of controversy is that I feel like Brunson should have started over Dame.
You think so?
I
Yeah,
feel like
people were saying that.
the fans kind of dropped the ball there, you
Hmm.
know?
With the All-Star game, you think everything else is good? Think SGA starting for the first time?
Oh
Halliburton?
yeah. I think all that's great.
Yeah.
Um,
Great to see a Canadian starting for the first time
oh
since
yeah.
Nash. You know,
Yeah.
and rightfully so. It's amazing. We actually have a
Mhm,
Canadian player who's
mhm,
probably one of the best 10 players in the world right now and can actually prove it.
mhm. Yeah, definitely. That's tough for sure. That's tough. Um, yeah. So, do you have any thoughts on the All-Star game other than?
Well, they're going back to the pre 2018 format. You know,
Yeah, I concur with you there. That's a better decision.
yeah. LeBron. Wow, 20 All Star selections. That's crazy. That's it's been from 2005. You know,
Mhm,
let that sink in. Wembanyama was born in 2004. So, yeah, that's just crazy. I think he's been there 20 years or 20 straight seasons necessarily. Someone born that year would be in university right now, or at least in college,
mhm.
you know,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
crazy how long back that was. So, yeah,
exactly.
props to LeBron for making that NBA thing. And props to Kevin Durant as well, too. 14 selections. Give him credit as
Hmm.
well, too. He's been there from the
Yeah,
2000s.
yeah, that's mad impressive. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Ultimately, though, I believe that rounds out this week's or this iteration of the It's a Raptors Ting podcast. Thank you to our supporters who've been supporting us.
Thank you,
Uh,
guys.
it really means a lot. The last video was the most viewed video, episode 14, the most viewed video on this channel thus far. That gave us a lot of feedback. It tells us that, we're going in the right direction, and we really appreciate all the feedback that you all have been giving us and the increased interactions. Um, Nonetheless, thank you so much. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah.
Uh,
Subscribe. That subscribe button. Come
it,
on,
it, re-
guys. Do it, man.
it, it really helps us out in the
Come on.
algorithms a lot.
Right down
Uh,
there, man. Right down there.
yep. Tell them, Jerome.
Yep.
With that being said, saying it's a Raptors ting, eh?
Yes, sir.